The shuttle broke through the purple clouds, and Jiho pressed his face against the window. He had seen many worlds during his 20 years as a diplomat, but nothing like this. The entire planet seemed to be made of crystal. Towers reached into the sky like frozen waterfalls, catching the light of 3 distant suns. Everything glowed with soft colors that shifted as he watched. "Beautiful, isn't it?" Yuna said from the pilot seat. She had been his security chief for 5 years now, and she rarely showed emotion, but even she sounded impressed. "It's unreal," Jiho replied, "like someone built a world out of dreams." The Vel Empire controlled a quarter of the galaxy. They were older than human civilization by thousands of years. Their ships could cross distances that took human vessels months to travel. Their technology seemed like magic, and they had invited humanity to talk for the first time in history. Jiho was the first human ambassador to the Vel homeworld. He straightened his uniform and tried not to think about how much could go wrong. Earth needed this alliance. The outer colonies were struggling, and there were threats in the dark spaces between stars. But the Vel were strange. They spoke without words, reading thoughts directly from minds. They lived for centuries. They had powers humans could barely understand. The shuttle landed on a platform that looked like it was carved from a single massive diamond. Jiho stepped out with Yuna and 2 other security officers, Minho and Taeyang. The air tasted sweet, like fruit he couldn't name. Music seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. Figures waited for them at the end of the platform. They were tall and thin, with skin that glowed from within. Their eyes had no whites, just swirling colors that changed as they moved. They wore flowing robes that seemed to be alive, shifting colors like oil on water. The tallest figure stepped forward. Jiho felt pressure against his thoughts, like someone trying to open a door in his mind. It was uncomfortable but not painful. He had been trained for this. Humans were different from other species. Their minds were loud and chaotic, full of random thoughts and strong emotions. It made them hard for telepaths to read. "Welcome, Ambassador Jiho of Earth," the tall figure said aloud. Her voice was like bells ringing. "I am Queen Lyra-eth. Your mind is interesting, loud. I cannot read your thoughts clearly." "Thank you, Your Majesty," Jiho said, bowing as he had practiced. "It's an honor to be here." "We shall see if honor survives what comes next," the Queen said. There was something in her tone that made Jiho's instincts scream danger, but he kept his face calm. They walked through corridors that seemed to breathe. The walls pulsed with light in rhythm, like a heartbeat. Other Vel watched them pass, their glowing eyes curious and cold. Jiho felt like an insect under glass. The throne room was vast. The ceiling disappeared into darkness high above. The floor was transparent, showing depths below that made Jiho dizzy. The Queen sat on a throne that looked grown rather than built, crystalline branches twisting into a seat. Other Vel stood around the room. Important ones, Jiho guessed, from how they held themselves. And near the Queen's throne stood a smaller figure. She was younger than the others, her glow brighter and her movements more nervous. She stared at Jiho with open curiosity. "My youngest daughter," the Queen said, noticing his glance. "Princess Hanavel. She has never seen a human before." The young princess moved closer, tilting her head like a bird studying something strange. "Your mind is so loud," she said, wonder in her voice. "Like a storm. How do you think with all that noise?" Jiho smiled. "We're used to it. It's just how we are." "Fascinating," Hana whispered. The Queen raised a hand. "Enough. We have much to discuss, Ambassador. The galaxy grows dangerous. Old enemies wake. New threats emerge. Humanity is young but strong in ways we have forgotten. Perhaps together we can face what comes." Before Jiho could respond, the lights went out. The darkness lasted only a moment, but in that moment Jiho heard Yuna shout a warning. His training took over. He moved toward the nearest person, which happened to be Princess Hana. He grabbed her and pulled her down, just as something hot and bright screamed through the air where her head had been. The lights came back. Chaos filled the throne room. Vel guards were running toward a figure in dark robes who held a weapon that crackled with energy. The assassin fired again, this time at the queen. But Vel guards made a shield with their minds, and the shot bounced away harmlessly. The assassin turned to run, but Minho was faster. He tackled the attacker to the ground. Tai Yang secured the weapon while Yuna covered them both with her gun. Jiho realized he was still on top of Princess Hana. He quickly stood and helped her up. "I'm sorry, Your Highness. I didn't think, He stopped. The young princess was staring at him with wide, glowing eyes. Around them, every Vel in the room had frozen. They were all staring at him, too. "You protected her," the queen said slowly. "You threw yourself between my daughter and danger. You don't know her. Your species has no connection to ours. Yet you risked your life without thinking." Jiho didn't know what to say. It seemed like the right thing to do. "The right thing," the queen repeated. She looked at him for a long moment, and Jiho felt that pressure against his mind again. This time it felt different, like she was trying to understand something impossible. Yes, perhaps that is what we have forgotten. What is right, not just what is logical. Princess Hana touched her throat where the shot had nearly taken her head off. She looked at Jiho with something new in her expression, not just curiosity anymore, something deeper. "Take the assassin away," the queen commanded. "Find out who sent them." She turned back to Jiho. "Ambassador, you are injured." Jiho looked down. His arm was burned where the shot had grazed him. He hadn't even felt it in the excitement. "It's nothing, Your Majesty." "It is not nothing," Hana said quietly. "You bled for me, for a stranger." "That's what we do," Jiho said simply. "Humans protect each other, even strangers. Maybe especially strangers." The queen sat back on her throne. For the first time since they had met, she looked tired. "My sister seeks my throne. She sent that assassin. This is only the beginning of the storm." She looked at Jiho with new intensity. "Tell me, Ambassador, do all humans act as you do? Do they all protect the helpless without thought of reward?" Jiho thought about Earth, about the soldiers who ran into danger to save others, about the ordinary people who helped strangers every day. "Most of us try," he said. "It's what makes us human." "Then perhaps," the queen said softly, "humanity is exactly what the Vel Empire needs to survive." Princess Hana was still watching Jiho. She touched her chest where her heart would be. "Thank you, Earthman," she whispered. "I will not forget what you did today." Jiho bowed to her. He didn't know it yet, but that single moment of instinct, that choice to protect a stranger without thinking, had just changed the fate of two species. The Vel had lived for thousands of years with cold logic and calculated decisions. They had forgotten what it meant to act from the heart. But Jiho was about to teach them. 3 days after the assassination attempt, Jiho sat in a medical chamber while Vel healers worked on his arm. The technology was beyond anything on Earth. They used light and sound to heal tissue, and the burn was already fading. But the Vel healers kept staring at him like he was a puzzle they couldn't solve. "Your body fights the healing," one of them said. "Your cells are aggressive, chaotic, but also resilient, fascinating." Jiho had heard that word a lot since arriving. Fascinating. The Vel found everything about humans fascinating. They studied him constantly, always trying to read his thoughts, always confused when they couldn't. Princess Hana visited him every day. She would sit in the corner of the medical room and watch him with those swirling, colorful eyes. At first she just observed in silence, but on the 3rd day she started asking questions. "Why did you protect me?" she asked suddenly. Jiho looked at her. She was young for a Vel, maybe 70 years old, which was like being a teenager in human terms. Her glow was brighter than the older Vel, and she moved with more energy. "Because you were in danger," he said simply. "But you don't know me. I am nothing to you. Your species has no bond with mine." "Does that matter?" Jiho asked. Hana tilted her head, that bird-like gesture he was getting used to. "To the Vel, yes, we protect our own, family, empire, but not strangers. There is no logic in dying for someone you don't know." "Maybe there doesn't need to be logic," Jiho said. "Maybe some things are just right to do." She was quiet for a long time, thinking. Then she said, "Teach me. Teach me about humans, about why you do things that make no sense." That was how it started. Every day, Hana would come to wherever Jiho was working, and they would talk. She asked endless questions. What was Earth like? Why did humans have families when they could just share minds? Why did they make art when they could transmit feelings directly? Why did they form attachments that caused them pain? Jiho answered as best he could. He told her about his own daughter back on Earth, a girl named Jisoo who he hadn't seen in 3 years. He showed Hana pictures on his data pad. He explained that humans needed physical touch and spoken words because they couldn't read minds. That loneliness was their constant companion, but it made connections more precious when they found them. Hana absorbed everything like a plant drinking water. She started to change. Small things at first. She would smile, which Vel rarely did. She would touch things instead of just observing them. She asked about music, and Jiho played her old songs from Earth. She sat transfixed, glowing brighter with each note. "It carries emotion," she whispered. "Sound itself carries emotion. We have music, but it's not like this, not this raw." But while Hana learned about humanity, the Empire was tearing itself apart. The Queen called Jiho to her private chambers one evening. She looked exhausted, her glow dimmer than usual. "The assassin talked before we executed him," she said without greeting. "My sister Velmora leads a faction called the Ascendancy. They believe the Empire has grown weak through peace. They want to return to the old ways, conquest, domination. They see our invitation to humanity as the ultimate weakness." "How many follow her?" Jiho asked. "Too many. Perhaps half the Empire." The Queen's hands trembled. "We have not had civil war in 5,000 years, Ambassador. We have forgotten how to fight each other. Our weapons are designed for use against outsiders, not ourselves." "What will you do?" The Queen looked at him for a long moment. "Something desperate. Something that will either save us or doom us completely." She stood and walked to the window overlooking her crystal city. "I invited humanity here not just for alliance. I invited you because you have something we lost long ago. The ability to feel deeply, to bond irrationally, to sacrifice for no logical reason. My people have become cold, Ambassador. Efficient, but empty. We need to remember how to be warm again." Before Jiho could respond, alarms screamed through the palace. The walls pulsed red. Yuna burst through the door, weapon ready. "They're here," she said. "The Ascendancy. Attack ships in orbit. Ground forces teleporting into the lower city." The Queen's face hardened. "It begins." The next hours were chaos. The Ascendancy used weapons Jiho had never seen, devices that attacked the mind directly, making Vel soldiers collapse, screaming. Machines that phased through walls, teleportation technology that let them appear anywhere. But they hadn't counted on humans. Jiho and his team fought differently. They used encrypted communications that the Vel couldn't intercept mentally. They set physical traps and ambushes that the telepathic attackers never saw coming. Yuna led security forces in guerrilla tactics, hitting supply lines and disappearing before the enemy could respond. Minho proved to be a genius at reading battle patterns. He predicted enemy movements not through psychic power, but through pure tactical analysis. Taiyang coordinated defenses using old Earth military strategies that the Vel had never encountered. The palace held, but barely. Hundreds died in the fighting. The crystal towers that had seemed so beautiful were now scorched and broken. The Ascendancy pulled back after 6 hours, but everyone knew they would return. Jiho found Hana in her chambers. She was curled in a corner, glowing very dimly, almost dark. He sat down next to her carefully. "I felt them die," she whispered. "All of them. The Vel who died today. I felt their minds go dark. We're all connected, Ambassador. When one of us dies, we all feel it. Today I felt hundreds go silent." "I'm sorry," Jiho said quietly. "They died because we invited you here, because my mother wants to change us." She looked at him with eyes full of pain. "Was it worth it? All this death?" Jiho thought carefully before answering. "I don't know, but I know that staying the same when you need to change is just another kind of death. A slower one, maybe, but death all the same." "Your daughter on Earth," Hana said suddenly. "You haven't seen her in 3 years. Why do you stay away?" "Because this work is important. Because protecting people, even strangers, is what I'm good at." "Do you miss her?" "Every day," Jiho admitted. "Every single day." Hana moved closer to him. She reached out tentatively and touched his hand. The Vel didn't touch much. They didn't need to with telepathy. But Hana had learned from watching humans. "I think I understand now why you protected me, why you do this work. You believe some things are more important than personal happiness." "I believe some things are worth protecting," Jiho corrected gently, "including the chance for people to change and grow. Your mother sees that her people need to remember how to feel. That takes courage." "Will you help us?" Hana asked. "Will you teach us how to be like humans? How to feel without drowning in it?" Jiho squeezed her hand carefully. "I'll try. But Hana, humans don't have it all figured out. We feel too much sometimes. We make mistakes because of our emotions. We're not perfect." "But you protect strangers," she said. "You sacrifice for people you don't know. You create beauty and meaning in a universe that has none. That seems perfect enough." The Queen found them there an hour later. She looked at her daughter sitting close to a human, holding his hand, and something shifted in her expression. Fear, maybe, or hope, or both. "Ambassador," the Queen said, "I have a proposal, something unprecedented in Vel history." She took a breath that she didn't need. "I want you to become my daughter's teacher, her guardian. We have a position called Soul Father, someone who guides a young royal, teaches them about the world. I want you to be Hana's Earth Father." The room went silent. Hana stared at her mother in shock. Jiho felt the weight of what was being asked. "Your Majesty," he said carefully, "I'm human. I barely understand your culture. Exactly," the Queen interrupted. "You will teach her what we cannot. How to feel, how to protect, how to sacrifice, how to be warm in a cold universe." Her voice dropped to almost a whisper. "How to save our people from destroying themselves." Jiho looked at Hana. She was glowing brighter now, hope and fear mixing in her expression. He thought about his own daughter on Earth, about the job he had taken to protect strangers, about the choice that had brought him across the galaxy. "I accept," he said. The announcement shocked the Vel court. A human, an alien, raising a princess, teaching her his primitive emotional ways? The nobles protested loudly. Some called it an insult to tradition. Others called it madness. A few called it treason. But the Queen stood firm. "The Ascendancy returns in strength," she told her court. "They will not stop until they destroy everything we have built. We must evolve or die. Ambassador Jiho will teach my daughter what we have forgotten. How to feel, how to care beyond logic, how to protect the helpless, not because it serves us, but because it is right. The nobles had no answer for that. They bowed and accepted, but Jiho could feel their cold anger. He had made enemies simply by saying yes. The first weeks were difficult. Jiho moved into chambers near Hana's section of the palace. The other Vel watched him constantly, their glowing eyes following his every move. Some were curious. Most were hostile. They whispered in their telepathic way, and though Jiho couldn't hear the words, he felt their judgment. Hana struggled too. She was caught between two worlds now. Her mother wanted her to learn human ways, but the court expected her to remain a proper Vel princess. Cold, logical, above emotion. Jiho started with simple lessons. He taught her about Earth's history, about how humans had nearly destroyed themselves many times, but always found a way to survive. He told her about wars and peace, about art and science, about love and loss. "Why do humans fight so much?" Hana asked one day. They were in the palace gardens, surrounded by plants that glowed in the twilight. "Because we care," Jiho said. "We fight for what we believe in, for people we love. Sometimes we fight because we're scared or angry. Emotions drive us to do both terrible and wonderful things. The Vel don't fight among ourselves. We reach consensus through shared thoughts. And yet here you are, in a civil war," Jiho pointed out gently. Hana dimmed a bit, her glow fading. "Because we stopped sharing thoughts honestly. We stopped trusting each other. Maybe we became too cold." "Maybe," Jiho agreed. "Or maybe you just need to learn balance. Feel deeply but think clearly. Care about others but don't lose yourself." He showed her music from Earth. Old songs his mother used to play. Rock music that made her glow brighter with excitement. Sad ballads that made her dim and touch her chest like something hurt. Classical pieces that made her sway without realizing it. "Music is emotion in sound," she said, wonder in her voice. "We have music, but not like this. Ours is perfect and precise. Yours is messy and raw, and it makes me feel things I don't have words for." "That's the point," Jiho said. "Not everything needs words." He taught her to cook, though the Vel rarely ate solid food. They stood in a small kitchen he had set up, and he showed her how to make simple earth dishes. Hana burned the rice. She oversalted the soup. She laughed when flour got all over her glowing skin, and the sound echoed through the palace like bells. The Vel nobles who heard it were scandalized. Princesses didn't laugh. But Jiho saw the queen watching from a doorway, and there was satisfaction in her expression. Weeks turned into months. The ascendancy attacked sporadically, testing defenses, wearing down the loyal forces. The war was slow and grinding, but inside the palace, something new was growing. Hana changed. She smiled now. She touched things with curiosity instead of just observing. She asked questions that made the court uncomfortable. Why did the Vel have slaves? Why did they see other species as inferior? Why did they live so long but do so little with their lives? The other young Vel started to notice. A few began following Hana's example. They started speaking aloud instead of just using telepathy. They listened to human music. They asked Jiho questions about Earth. The court elders watched with horror as their youth began to transform. One afternoon, Jiho told Hana about his daughter Jisoo. "She was 7 when I last saw her. Smart, curious like you, always asking why." "Do you regret leaving her?" Hana asked. "Every day, but I also believe this work matters. Sometimes love means making hard choices." Hana was quiet for a long time. Then she said, "You are like a father to me now. My real father died before I was born. He was a warrior who fell in battle centuries ago. I never knew what it was like to have someone protect me, guide me, just because they cared." Jiho felt emotion tighten his throat. "I'm honored, Hana. I want to call you Earth Father, not as a title but as truth. Then I want to call you daughter, Jiho said, not by blood, but by choice. They sat together in the garden while the three suns set, and for the first time since arriving on this alien world, Jiho felt like he had found family. But the Ascendancy was watching. They saw how Hana was changing, how the youth followed her, how even some adults began questioning the old ways. The enemy saw the danger in this cultural revolution. They decided to end it. The attack came during a state dinner. The Queen was hosting ambassadors from other systems, showing them that her empire remained strong. Hana attended, wearing formal robes that shimmered like starlight. Jiho sat at her right hand, his human security team positioned around the room. One of the servants, a Vel named Sora, who had served the royal family for decades, collapsed suddenly. She fell face first into her plate, twitching. Yuna was at her side instantly, checking for life signs. Poison, Yuna reported grimly. Neural toxin. She's gone. The room erupted in chaos. Guards searched for the killer. The Queen stood ready to evacuate. But Jiho had spent months studying Vel tactics. He understood how they thought. Poison wasn't the attack. It was the distraction. Hana, get down, he shouted. Three figures in servant robes threw off their disguises. Ascendancy assassins, armed with crystal blades and psychic weapons. They moved fast, teleporting across the room in flashes of light. Their target was obvious: Princess Hana. The first assassin materialized behind Hana. Jiho threw himself between them, taking a slash meant for her throat. The blade cut deep into his shoulder, and blood sprayed across the white floor. But he didn't fall. Years of military training overrode the pain. He grabbed the assassin's weapon arm and broke it with a savage twist. The second assassin fired a psychic pulse. It hit Jiho like a hammer, and his mind screamed. But human minds were chaotic, hard to destroy. He stayed conscious through sheer stubbornness. Minho shot the assassin from across the room, perfect accuracy despite the chaos. The third assassin reached Hana. She stared up at the glowing blade, frozen in terror. The Vel had lived so long in peace that violence paralyzed them. But Hana had learned from her Earth Father. She wasn't just Vel anymore. Her hand moved to the plasma pistol Jiho had insisted she carry. She drew it with shaking hands and fired. The shot took the assassin in the chest, burning through armor and flesh. The attacker fell, surprised that a princess would dare fight back. Yuna and Taeyang secured the room. More guards poured in. The assassins were dead or captured, but Hana stood in the middle of the carnage, still holding the smoking pistol, her whole body trembling. "I killed him," she whispered. "I took a life. I felt his mind go dark." Jiho, bleeding heavily from his shoulder, limped to her side. "You protected yourself. You survived. That's what matters." He was Vel, one of my own people. "And I killed him." Tears ran down her glowing face, the first tears she had ever cried. "Sometimes survival means making terrible choices," Jiho said gently. "Welcome to being human." The Queen ordered the palace locked down. Medical teams treated the wounded. Jiho's shoulder required hours of surgery. But he was alive, and so was Hana. That night, after the healers released him, Jiho returned to his chambers. He was exhausted, drugged with pain medication, barely able to stand. He collapsed onto his bed, still wearing his torn, bloody clothes. He was almost asleep when he heard the door open. Hana stood in the doorway. She wasn't glowing brightly as usual. Her light was dim, flickering like a dying candle. She looked small and scared and very, very young. "Earth Father," she said quietly, "I keep seeing his face, the one I killed. I keep feeling his mind go dark. I can't be alone right now. I'm scared. I'm so scared." Jiho sat up despite the pain. "Come here." She crossed the room slowly. In Vel culture, sharing sleeping space was sacred. It meant complete trust, complete vulnerability. The Vel meditated instead of sleeping, entering a trance state where they couldn't defend themselves. To do it near someone meant you trusted them with your life. "Sleep next to me tonight, Earthfather," Hana whispered, and her voice broke on the words. "I don't want to be alone." Jiho moved over on the bed. "I'm here. You're safe." Hana curled up beside him, and he wrapped his good arm around her like he used to hold his daughter during thunderstorms back on Earth. She pressed her face against his chest and cried, deep, shaking sobs that made her glow pulse erratically. "I was so scared," she said between sobs. "I thought they would kill you. I thought I would lose you." "But they didn't. We're both here. We survived. I don't want to be Vel anymore. I don't want to be cold and logical. I want to feel things. I want to care about people. I want to be like you." "You can be both," Jiho said softly. "Vel and human, strong and caring. You don't have to choose." Unknown to them, the Queen stood in the doorway. She had come to check on her daughter. Now she watched as an alien held her child, comforting her with simple physical presence in a way the Vel had forgotten centuries ago. The Queen trembled, not with anger or disgust, but with grief and hope intertwined. Her daughter had changed. The Empire would never accept this new Hana, but perhaps this new Hana was exactly what the Empire needed. She turned and walked away, leaving them together in the darkness. Outside, the war continued. Inside, a new bond formed between species, between father and daughter, between old ways and new hope. Morning came with news that changed everything. Half the Vel noble houses had declared for the ascendancy overnight. The Queen's sister, Velmora, sent a message that broadcast across all Vel worlds. Her voice was cold and absolute. "The Queen has betrayed our people. She poisons our youth with alien thoughts. She teaches our children to be weak, to feel, to act like primitive animals. The princess is corrupted beyond saving. When we take the throne, both mother and daughter will be executed. The human filth will be purged from our empire. We will be pure again." The message ended with images of Hana sleeping next to Jiho, stolen by spies. The ascendancy showed it to every Vel world as proof of corruption. A princess, heir to the ancient throne, sleeping beside an alien like a common pet. The reaction was explosive. More houses defected. Protests erupted on loyal worlds. The court demanded answers. How could the Queen allow such disgrace? But the Queen surprised everyone. She called a grand assembly, forcing every noble to attend in person or through hologram. Thousands filled the great hall. Jiho stood beside Hana, feeling the weight of hostile stares. "You want answers?" the Queen said, her voice echoing through the vast space. "I will give them. Yes, I asked a human to teach my daughter. Yes, I encouraged her to learn their ways. Yes, I watched as she transformed from a cold, perfect Vel princess into something new. And I am proud." Shocked silence filled the hall. "Look at us," the Queen continued. 10,000 years of civilization, 10,000 years of peace. And in that peace, we became empty. We stopped feeling. We stopped caring beyond our immediate circle. We became so efficient, so logical, so perfect, that we forgot what it means to live." She gestured to Jiho. "This human protected my daughter without thinking, without calculation. He risked his life for a stranger because it was right. When did the Vel last do something simply because it was right? When did we last feel strongly enough about anything to sacrifice ourselves?" "We don't need to feel," an old noble shouted. "Emotion is weakness. It clouds judgment. It leads to chaos." "Does it?" the Queen challenged. "Or does feeling give us something to fight for? The ascendancy calls us weak, but they're wrong." "We're not weak because we feel. We're weak because we stopped feeling. My sister leads her followers with cold logic. I will lead mine with warm hearts. We'll see which is stronger. She turned to address the entire assembly. From this day forward, the Vel Empire changes. I'm appointing humans to positions of power. They will teach our military, our diplomats, our youth. We will learn from them as they learn from us. Together we will create something neither species could achieve alone. The assembly erupted in argument. Some cheered, more protested, but the queen had made her choice. There was no going back. In the days that followed, she put her words into action. Tai Yang became her chief military strategist, revolutionizing Vel combat doctrine. Nari, another human advisor, was named cultural liaison, teaching Vel youth about art, music, and emotion. Minho took over intelligence operations, his analytical mind catching threats the telepathic Vel missed, and Jiho remained at Hana's side, her Earth father and guardian. Where she went, he followed. The court hated it. The ascendancy used it as propaganda. But Hana walked taller now. She spoke with confidence. She met the hostile stares with calm strength. They say I'm corrupted, she told Jiho one evening. They say I've become too human. What do you say? He asked. I say I've become myself. For the first time in my life, I know who I am. Not just a Vel, not just a princess, but someone who cares, someone who protects others, someone who feels deeply and thinks clearly. She paused. Someone who loves her Earth father. Jiho felt his eyes water. I love you too, daughter. But love wouldn't stop the coming war. The ascendancy gathered their forces. Velmora commanded fleets that made the queen's forces look tiny. Worlds declared for her every day. The tide was turning against everything the queen had built. One night, 3 months after becoming Hana's Earth father, Jiho found the queen alone in her private gardens. She sat beneath a tree that glowed with soft blue light, looking older than her centuries. They're coming, she said without turning around. My sister has enough forces now. She'll attack within days, and we'll lose. You don't know that, Jiho said. I do. I've run the calculations. We're outnumbered 3-1, outgunned, outpositioned. Logic says we cannot win. She finally looked at him. But perhaps logic isn't everything. That's what you've taught us, isn't it? Sometimes you have to try even when you know you'll lose. Sometimes the attempt itself matters. The queen stood and walked to him. I have a favor to ask. Take my daughter and flee to Earth. Save her life. The ascendancy will execute her if they capture the palace. But on Earth she could live. She could— No, Hana said from the shadows. She stepped into the garden, glowing with determination. I'm not running, Mother. This is my home. These are my people, even the ones who hate me. I won't abandon them. You'll die, the queen said flatly. Then I die standing beside the people I love. That's what Earthfather taught me. That's what being human means. You don't run from the people who need you. Jiho looked between mother and daughter. She's right. We stay. All of us. We fight together or we don't fight at all. The queen closed her eyes. You've changed her so much. She was such an obedient child before you came. Now she argues with me, refuses orders, thinks for herself. Isn't that what you wanted? Jiho asked gently. Yes, but I didn't think I would lose her to get it. The queen opened her eyes, and they were full of fear and pride mixed together. Very well. We stand together. When my sister comes, she'll find we've learned more than emotion from humanity. We've learned courage. The next 2 days passed in frantic preparation. Every loyal Vel gathered to the homeworld. Every ship, every soldier, every weapon. Taeyang drilled them in human tactics. Yuna trained them in guerrilla warfare. Nari taught them songs to keep their spirits up, something the Vel had never needed before. Hana worked beside her mother, coordinating defenses, encouraging soldiers, showing them that their princess wasn't afraid, and Jiho stood at her shoulder, her constant shadow, her Earth father who had taught her that fear was okay as long as you didn't let it stop you. On the evening before the attack, Jiho found a quiet moment with his team. Yuna, Minho, Taiyang, Nari, Sora, who had recovered from the earlier poisoning. All the humans who had come so far from Earth. "Tomorrow we fight," he said. "We're not fighting for politics or resources. We're fighting for people we've come to care about, for the Vel who want to change, for Hana and the Queen, for the chance to build something new." "We're probably going to die," Yuna said bluntly. "Probably," Jiho agreed. "But we'll die protecting people we love." "That's a good way to go." They spent the night in preparation, checking weapons, setting traps, making plans. And when the three suns rose on what might be their last day, they were ready. The Ascendancy fleet appeared in orbit like a swarm of metal locusts, hundreds of ships, thousands of soldiers, weapons that could crack planets. Velmora's face appeared on every screen in the city. "Surrender," she commanded. "Give me my sister and the corrupted princess. Send the humans back to their primitive world. Do this, and I will spare the loyal soldiers. Refuse, and everyone dies." The queen stood in her throne room, surrounded by her remaining loyalists. She looked at her daughter, who stood tall and unafraid beside her Earth father. She looked at the humans who had taught her people how to feel again. "No," the queen said simply. "Then you have chosen death," Velmora replied. The attack began. Ships descended through the atmosphere. Troops teleported into the city. The Battle of Crystal Throne had begun, and the fate of two species hung in the balance. But the Ascendancy had made one critical mistake. They had planned for fighting the old Vel Empire, cold, logical, predictable. They weren't ready for Vel who had learned to fight like humans, with passion, with unpredictability, with courage born from caring deeply about what they protected. Jiho gripped his weapon and looked at Hana. "Ready, daughter?" She ignited her plasma pistol and smiled, her glow burning bright. "Ready, Earth Father. Let's show them what we've learned." Together they walked out to face the storm. The crystal towers burned. Plasma fire lit the sky in colors that should have been beautiful, but were only terrifying. Ascendancy forces poured into the city like a flood, teleporting past defensive lines, attacking from every direction at once. The old Vel tactics were useless against such overwhelming numbers. But the humans fought differently. Yuna led a squad of Vel soldiers through the burning streets, hitting supply lines and vanishing before the enemy could respond. The Ascendancy couldn't predict her movements because she didn't use telepathy. Every decision was made in her loud, chaotic human mind that they couldn't read. Minho coordinated fleet movements from the palace command center. He used ancient Earth strategies, feints, and misdirections that confused the logical Vel commanders. When they expected ships to attack, he retreated. When they thought he would defend, he ambushed. The Ascendancy fleet, 3 times larger, couldn't pin down his forces. Taiyang taught the Vel soldiers something their species had forgotten: how to fight with emotion, how to channel fear into fury, how to protect the person next to you not because orders demanded it, but because you cared if they lived or died. And in the throne room, Jiho stood beside Hana and the Queen, watching the battle unfold on holographic displays. The situation looked hopeless. For every enemy they destroyed, 2 more appeared. The palace shields were failing. Ascendancy troops would breach the inner chambers within hours. "We need to evacuate," one of the Queen's advisors said. "Your Majesty, Princess, there's still time to escape." "No," Hana said firmly. "We don't abandon our people." The advisor looked at her with contempt. "You sound human, Princess. That's not a compliment." "It is to me," Hana replied. The first breach came from the eastern wing. Ascendancy soldiers teleported through the failing shields. Jiho grabbed Hana's arm. "Stay close to me. Remember your training." They fought through the palace corridors. Jiho fired his weapon with practiced precision, while Hana used a combination of plasma pistol and psychic pulses. She had learned to blend both sides of her nature, Vel and human, into something new. Loyal guards fought beside them. Vel, who had learned that protecting others mattered, who had learned to feel deeply about their cause. They died holding corridors so civilians could escape. They sacrificed themselves for strangers. They fought like humans. And the Ascendancy forces reeled from the unexpected ferocity. But numbers told in the end. The palace fell floor by floor. The throne room was the last stronghold. The queen stood before her throne, refusing to flee. Around her, the last loyalists made their stand. That's when Velmora herself appeared. She teleported directly into the throne room with her personal guard. Tall and terrible, glowing with cold fury, her eyes fixed on the queen. "Sister, you've destroyed everything our ancestors built. For what? So you could feel? So you could play with pet aliens?" "I saved what our ancestors built," the queen replied. "They wanted us to survive, to thrive. We were dying of coldness, sister. The humans gave us warmth again." "Weakness," Velmora spat. She looked at Hana with disgust. "And you, the corrupted princess. I will execute you myself as an example. Your Earth Father will watch you die before I kill him too." "You'll have to go through me first," Jiho said, stepping in front of Hana. Velmora laughed. "A human. Protecting a Vel. This is what we've become? This is the great transformation?" She raised her hand, psychic energy crackling around it. "Watch, everyone. Watch as I show you what human protection is worth." She fired a psychic blast that could atomize a building. It roared across the throne room like lightning, straight at Hana. Jiho threw himself between them. The blast hit him full in the chest. His body convulsed as psychic energy tore through him. Every nerve screamed. His mind felt like it was being ripped apart. He collapsed, smoke rising from his burned uniform. "Earth Father!" Hana's scream echoed through the palace. Through the telepathic network, through every Vel mind connected to the collective consciousness. Something broke in her, not in a bad way, in a transformative way. All the emotion she had learned from Jiho, all the love and fear and desperate need to protect, it burst out of her in a psychic wave that hit every Vel in the battle. For the first time in thousands of years, the Vel felt pure, raw human emotion transmitted directly into their minds. Hana's grief, her love for her Earth Father, her fury at his injury, her desperate hope that he would survive. It overwhelmed their cold logic. It shattered their careful control. Ascendancy soldiers stopped mid-attack, stunned by feelings they hadn't experienced in lifetimes. Some of them started crying without understanding why. Others fell to their knees, overwhelmed by the sudden rush of emotion. Even Velmora staggered, her cold certainty shaken by her niece's love and grief. Hana ran to Jiho. He was barely breathing, his body destroyed by the psychic attack. She pressed her glowing hands to his chest. "Don't leave me. Please. You taught me how to care. You taught me how to love. You can't leave now. Earth Father, please." The queen moved to her daughter's side. She placed her hands on Jiho, too, adding her own psychic energy to Hana's desperate healing attempt. Around the throne room, loyal Vel did the same. They poured their energy into saving this one human who had taught them so much. Yuna burst into the throne room with her squad. She saw Jiho dying and rage filled her. She fired at Velmora without hesitation. The Ascendancy leader deflected the shots. But more loyal forces poured in. The battle resumed, fiercer than before. But something had changed. The emotional broadcast from Hana had spread through the Vel network. Millions felt it, billions, Every Vel in the galaxy suddenly experienced what it meant to love so deeply you would die to protect it, to feel so strongly you would fight impossible odds, to care beyond logic and reason. The ascendancy forces began to falter. Soldiers questioned why they were fighting. What were they trying to save? The old ways, cold logic, empty efficiency? Velmora commanded them to attack, but doubt had taken root. On the throne room floor, Jiho gasped and opened his eyes. The combined psychic energy had stabilized him, kept him alive when he should have died. He looked up at Hana's tear-streaked face. Did we win? Not yet, Hana said, laughing and crying at once. But we will, because you taught me how. She stood and faced her aunt. Velmora looked shaken, uncertain for the first time. Hana walked toward her slowly. You wanted to execute me as an example, Hana said, to show everyone what happens to corrupted Vel. But you're wrong, Aunt. I'm not corrupted. I'm evolved. I learned to feel without losing my mind, to care without losing my logic. I'm both Vel and human now, and that makes me stronger than you. Impossible, Velmora said. Emotion is weakness. Then why are your soldiers standing down? Hana gestured to the ascendancy forces. They had stopped fighting. They stood uncertain, confused by the emotions still echoing through the network. You call me weak, but I have something to fight for. People I love, people who love me. What do you have? Cold duty? Empty tradition? Velmora looked around at her forces, at the doubt in their glowing eyes, at the queen standing tall despite her wounds, at the humans who had fought alongside Vel as equals, at her niece, who burned bright with emotions and strength combined. I have... She couldn't finish. You have nothing, Hana said quietly. And that's why you lose. Velmora's shoulders slumped. The fight went out of her. She knelt slowly before her sister. I surrender. The ascendancy collapsed without their leader. Soldiers laid down weapons. Ships retreated from orbit. The battle was over. The queen had won, but at terrible cost. The capital city was ruined. Thousands had died. The empire would never be the same. But perhaps that was the point. In the days that followed, human medical technology saved Jiho's life. He would carry scars from the psychic attack forever, but he survived. Hana never left his side during his recovery. She held his hand and told him stories about Earth that he had told her, giving him back the comfort he had given her. When he finally woke fully, a week later, the queen was there. Ambassador, she said formally, the Vel Empire owes you a debt we can never repay. You saved my daughter. You saved my people. You taught us how to feel again. I just did what felt right, Jiho said weakly. Exactly. That's what humans do, and that's what we need to learn. She looked at Hana. I'm naming you Crown Princess, future queen. You will lead the new empire, one that blends Vel wisdom with human warmth. Hana bowed to her mother. And Jiho will be my chief advisor, my Earth father, always. The queen smiled. I expected nothing less. Months passed. The empire signed the Accord of Two Worlds with Earth. Vel and human cultures began to merge. Young Vel learned human languages and art. Humans learned Vel technology and telepathy. Neither species would be the same, but both would be better. One afternoon, Jiho walked through the rebuilt palace gardens with Hana. She had grown since they first met. More confident, more complete. She was truly Vel and human both now, the best of two worlds. Are you ever going to return to Earth? She asked. To see your daughter? Jiho looked at her. I thought I would. But then I realized something. Jisoo is grown now. She has her own life. But you, Hana, you still need me. And I need you. You're my daughter too, just not by blood. By choice, Hana said. By choice, Jiho agreed. They sat under a tree that glowed blue in the twilight. In orbit above, mixed fleets of Vel and human ships kept watch together. In the cities below, two species learned to live as one, and in the palace gardens, a father and daughter rested, knowing they had changed the galaxy forever. "Thank you," Hana said quietly, "for protecting me that first day, for teaching me, for showing me how to be more than what I was born to be." "Thank you for letting me," Jiho replied, "for giving an old soldier a new purpose, for being the daughter I needed even though we came from different worlds." The queen watched them from her balcony. She no longer trembled with fear. The transformation was complete. The empire had survived by learning to feel, to care, to love. Her sister lived in exile, contemplating the lessons she had learned too late. But here, in this garden, under alien stars, two species had found common ground: a human father, a Vel daughter, proof that bonds chosen in love were stronger than any forged in logic. And as the three suns set on the crystal world, painting the sky in colors beyond naming, Jiho and Hana sat together in comfortable silence. Family not by blood or species, but by the strongest bond of all. The choice to protect each other no matter the cost. The choice to love.